The second Marvel Tokon beta has just ended and I was lucky enough to play, which means it's time for a review. Many of you always ask me to play other fighting games besides Mortal Kombat, so here you go. Please leave a like down below if you want more Marvel Tokon videos in the future, because I recorded a lot of gameplay. But for today, does Marvel Tokon live up to the hype? Is the gameplay as good as the trailers make it look? The short answer is yes, mostly. The gameplay has some minor issues and the controls feel a bit unintuitive, all of which I'm gonna cover in this video, along with the graphics, the music, the dialogue, literally everything. Yeah, that's right, I'm gonna try and cover everything about Marvel Tokon in today's review, because I love fighting games. I mostly cover Mortal Kombat stuff, but I play all the fighting games, including Tekken and Street Fighter, on a near weekly basis. So yeah, I've got a ton of experience playing these games, but also I understand what casual fans want too, which is why I'm making today's video. I'm not a hardcore player, but I'm not a casual either. I'm somewhere in the middle, and I bet most of you watching are as well. So today's review is gonna be perfect. If anyone watching played the beta too, please let me know your thoughts in the comments. What did you like about the beta and what did you dislike? Make sure to let me know, because maybe one of the developers will watch this video too. You never know. Alright everyone, without any further ado, let's begin. The very first thing you notice about Marvel Tokon is definitely the art style. It's just stellar. Which of course it is. This is ArcSys we're talking about. They make the Guilty Gear games, which also look incredible. They also made Dragon Ball FighterZ, which looks incredible too. So with that in mind, it makes sense that Marvel Tokon looks almost perfect. When I picture a comic book game, this is how I want it to look. The characters are 3D models, but designed to look 2D, and it's done so well. Also, the music is amazing too, and changes slightly at the end based on who you're playing. Or in other words, every character in the game has an ending theme, which is such a nice touch. But then you have the dialogue. I love the dialogue, especially for Spider-Man. He's actually roasting the opponents, which I miss, man. Recent movies make Spider-Man way too nice, even though he's known for insulting people in the comics. And in this game, that's back. If you beat Iron Man, for example, he says, "Wow, your billion-dollar suit lost to my high school science project." Oh, yeah, that's the stuff. Spider-Man's finally roasting people again, and it's amazing. Along with every other dialogue in the game too, it fits the character perfectly, straight out of the comic books. You can tell they hired some writers who really understand the characters. So yeah, I'm guessing most reviewers aren't going to talk about the dialogue, but I for one appreciate how these characters sound straight out of the comic books. The dialogue is superb. Now alright, next up it's time to talk about the gameplay, which is going to have negative criticism. Mostly positive, but there's some negative stuff too. So for anybody watching looking forward to the critical stuff where I actually get mad, here's that part of the video. Overall, the gameplay in Marvel Tokon is nice. The gameplay is fast like you want, but the combos are shorter than expected, which at first threw me off, but honestly, after playing for a few hours, I prefer that. For comparison, in other tag fighters like Dragon Ball FighterZ or Marvel vs. Capcom, you can die in 1 or 2 combos, right? Sometimes just one combo can kill you. And yeah, that's just how it goes for most tag fighting games, but not Marvel Tokon. In this game, combos tend to only do like 20 to 30% at the most, which I do think is for the better. Also, this game has tons of defensive tools to get the opponent off of you, which is very nice. However, let me say this, the controls take some getting used to. I play lots of fighting games, and it still took me a while to understand which buttons do what in Marvel Tokon. And that's for a couple reasons. Number one, the game has tons of universal mechanics to memorize, and also there's 6 attack buttons, which is more than most tag fighting games have. Marvel vs. Capcom, for example, only has 4 attack buttons, so Marvel Tokon has 2 more, and all of them do something in combination with each other. If you want a super, that's 2 buttons. If you want a dash, that's 2 buttons. If you want a throw or an overhead, that's 2 different buttons. So like mentioned earlier, it takes some getting used to. Now that being said, the game has tons of auto combo features too that casual fans will love. And in fact, even skilled players will make use of them too. I know I did. Very similar to Dragon Ball FighterZ, right? The auto combos are woven into the gameplay in a clever way so that even pro players make use of them. Marvel Tokon has some simple aspects to the gameplay as well, but when I tell you this game takes a while to understand, I really do mean that. There's no quarter circles or half circles, just direction plus button button, but the special moves are mapped to the shoulder buttons, and there's 2 of them. Then you have the tag button that's right here. It's a face button. Yeah, which threw me off because typically the tag buttons are the shoulders and the basic attacks are all the face buttons. But Marvel Tokon mixes things up, which definitely took some getting used to. It felt very alien for the first few matches. Now, of course, you can remap the buttons if you want to, but even that feature is more limited than I prefer. For example, if you want to make one button do your super attack, then you first have to manually learn which 2 buttons activate your super to begin with. Instead of other fighting games that say super button, which button do you want to do that? And you just press the button you want to use. In Marvel Tokon, the super is actually 2 buttons together, so first you have to memorize what those 2 buttons are called in the game and then map those 2 buttons to 2 different buttons to get your super. You know what I mean? It's just slightly more complicated than other fighting games do it. I'll put some examples on screen to say what I'm talking about. And for me personally, I do wish the button configuration was a bit better in Marvel Tokon. It feels too basic right now. To anyone watching right now who's never played the game, I almost want to recommend that you change the button layout immediately and move the tag button to a shoulder button like R1 or R2, and then make your special moves the X button, because that way all your primary attacks are on the face of the controller. That just makes more sense to me, but unfortunately I've played this game for hours already with the default layout, so it's probably too late for me to change because the muscle memory is already there. But for any new players, I recommend doing something like that. It just feels more natural. Alright, unfortunately, I'm not done being negative about the gameplay. Stage transitions, while looking really cool, happen all the damn time, and it gets really old really quick. For example, if you play one round of Marvel Tokon, you could easily get 2 to 3 stage transitions, if not more, in the same round, not even the same match. And keep in mind, the matches are best 3 out of 5, so the first player to win 3 matches wins the set. So if you're getting 2 to 3 transitions every match, and there can be 5 matches in total, that's like 10 to 15 stage transitions. Yeah, it's a lot. Which is why, in my opinion, I kinda wish it was more difficult to trigger the transitions, because right now you can activate them with auto combos or super attacks, all of which are really common. And that could be another issue for players, right? After the first month, you're gonna be so tired of seeing 2 to 3 supers every single round, but it's gonna happen. Or in other words, the regular gameplay gets broken up a ton by the cinematic gameplay, whether it's supers or stage transitions, all that stuff. So in my opinion, I wish there was less stage transitions, and maybe that super attacks were a bit harder to get. But okay, something positive. Characters in this game have tons of depth. And I'm not kidding, for a tag fighting game to have such a big move list per character and so many assists too is really impressive. Once again, I gotta use Marvel v Capcom because that's the most famous tag fighting game to compare it to, and in that game, every character has 1 assist at a time. You can change them in between matches. But during the rounds themselves, each character only has 1 assist. Not in Marvel Tokon. Every character has like 3 or 4 assists, so there's a lot. Then of course you have the basic attacks. There's 3 primaries, light, medium, heavy, then unique attacks and special moves. So 5 different buttons with different directions. Yeah, every character has a lot of moves, which I personally think is great in the long term. However, beginners will likely not enjoy this, since it does make learning new characters difficult, and you have to learn 4 of them to play the game properly. Yeah, so it's a daunting task. If you want to actually play a regular game of Marvel Tokon, you must memorize 4 characters, and each of those 4 characters have a big base move list and 4 different assists too to learn. So yeah, it's a lot of homework, which I think casual players will not enjoy. But with that said, I do think it's a positive in the long run, because when characters have lots of moves, it means lots of experimentation and reasons for players to keep coming back and constantly play the game. When a fighting game has depth, it tends to have a longer life cycle, whereas the simple fighting games tend to die off quicker. That's just a fact. Which is why it's great that Marvel Tokon has a large move list per character. For me personally, I was not expecting that. Then you have the EX attacks. I almost forgot about that. So every character has 2 supers. It's both shoulder buttons for level 1 super, then for the bigger super, it's forward plus both shoulder buttons. But then you have the special moves and the EX special moves, which is done by pressing the special and square or circle for the EX version. Yeah, like mentioned earlier, there's a lot of depth to this game. The universal mechanics and the character-specific moves, there's a lot. Because when you do an EX attack, it's not just more damage or a better combo starter, it's also a mix-up sometimes. For example, Spider-Man has this slide cartwheel attack. If you do the EX version, it hits low, which is a good mix-up because Spider-Man has overheads too. Yeah, so there's tons to learn with every single character. I do think Spider-Man's one of the more complex fighters, whereas Ms. Marvel is more of a simple character, right? So there's easy characters for beginners and more complicated characters for veterans. That's absolutely true and worth pointing out, but still, I would argue that the average Tokon character is more complicated than most tag fighting game characters. Which, when you think about it, does make sense because this same studio made Dragon Ball FighterZ, and all the DLC characters in that game were complicated. So it seems like developers kept that same mentality when making Marvel Tokon, because every fighter feels like a DLC character from Dragon Ball FighterZ, which in the long run is fantastic, but what I'm saying is if you want to learn Spider-Man, for example, it's not a casual task. No, you're gonna have to commit to that character for like a week before you fully understand them. And alright everyone, that's about it for my review of Marvel Tokon. I think the gameplay overall is really good. I just wish the cinematic stuff was a bit more rare, because I'm already tired of the stage transitions and supers. After just 2 days in a beta, I'm already sick of it. So the regular gameplay is good, but the other stuff on top, right, the visual nonsense is a bit too much for me. I'm still gonna buy and play the game, don't get it twisted, but I do wish developers would tone that stuff down and make it a bit more rare. Also, the game is complicated. Don't be fooled by the art style. This is not for kids. This game is a fighting game for fighting game lovers. That's not to say beginners won't love it. I think they will for a bit because there's auto combos and tons of attacks to have fun with that look really cool. However, at the higher level, beginners are gonna get stomped, like absolutely stomped, but that's kind of how it is for tag fighting games. You're always stomped by good players. With all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. How do you feel about Marvel Tokon or my review of the game? Grab that keyboard and make your voices heard. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like down below. It helps the channel out a ton. And then finish that combo by subscribing and ringing that bell so you never miss any future videos. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.